Welcome back to McNulty's Book Corral. Today I have an interesting roundup of books. They are exclusively nonfiction. For those few of you that know me well, you know that I'm deeply involved in nonfiction, researching and writing, most of which is done for private venues. So you don't get to see it, but I do it all the time. I love reading good nonfiction. So today I have 4 books that I'm going to talk about, and we're going to have 2 vintage and 2 contemporary. We're going to start off with Grantland Rice, actually. I have some notes here. This is the best of Grantland Rice, edited and selected by David Kammerer. And this was published in the, 1960s? I believe this was a 1963 book. This is a collection that you should get if you haven't read or are not familiar with Grantland Rice. He published many books during his lifetime. Grantland Rice was born in 1880 and he died in 1954. And he was a guy, he served in World War I. He was a guy who became famous because of his sports writing, but he was an interesting man because he wasn't the type of sports writer that just interviewed the athletes. He became friends with them, and by friends I mean he knew their families. He would celebrate holidays with them. He had dinner with them. I'm talking about celebrities like Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Jack Dempsey, the boxer. Bill Tilden, the tennis player. Famous golfers. In fact, Grantland Rice is a sports writer that went far in turning the American public onto the sport of golfing. He was a big promoter of golf. And many other things that he did. One of his famous quotes, which I wrote it down, I'm going to read it to you. You've heard this. For when the one great scorer comes to mark against your name, he writes not that you won or lost, but how you played the game. That's a quote you've all heard, and it relates to all of us. It's how you play the game of life that really counts. Sometimes we win at things, and sometimes we lose. Very perceptive man, and the power of observation is key here. That's why I'm spending a few more minutes with him. I just love Grantland Rice. There's a couple of things I want to get into here with him. In relation to his writing, he was an imagistic, traditional journalist who had exceptional power of description. His descriptive powers were great. But he was an observer, and as an observer, he noticed things. And the way he would phrase it is really profound. So he knew all these guys. One of his most famous, some of you may know this, I'm sure, but maybe some of the younger generation are unfamiliar with this famous column, which I'm going to read you the opening lines. It's called The Four Horsemen, and it was published in the New York Herald Tribune on October 19th, 1924. And he is watching one of Knute Rockne's games, the great coach, and against the Army. And this is what he wrote. Polo Grounds, New York, October 19th, 1924. Outlined against the blue-gray October sky, the four horsemen rode again. In dramatic lore, they are known as famine, pestilence, destruction, and death. These are only aliases. Their real names are Stooldryer, Miller Crowley, and Leyden. They formed the crest of the South Bend cyclone, before which another fighting Army football team was swept over the precipice at the Polo Grounds yesterday afternoon as 55,000 spectators peered down on the bewildering panorama spread on the green plain below. That is, without a doubt, the greatest opening paragraph of a sports column ever written. It is fantastic. He goes on, just a few lines here. A cyclone can't be snared. It may be surrounded, but somewhere it breaks through to keep on going. When the cyclone starts from South Bend, where the candle lights still gleam through the Indiana sycamores, those in the way must take to storm cellars at top speed. Yesterday, The Cyclones struck again as Notre Dame beat the Army 13-7 with a set of backfield stars that ripped and crashed through a strong Army defense with more speed and power than the warring cadets could meet. Grantland Rice, watching with incredible enthusiasm as Notre Dame beats the Army in 1924. A great piece of writing. The entire article, I believe, you can read online too. It's like 3 pages. When sports writing was an art, it is no longer an art. Journalism today is dismal. There are some, though. I'm going to show you 2 contemporary guys. So I greatly admire him for what he did. He has many books out there. I will leave it to you to find them. This is a good starting point because this compiles some of his best. Here he is with his fedora, and there's pictures of him wearing a suit and tie and fedora at his typewriter. Those days are gone. And remarkable guy. Now let's talk about his perceptions. He knew Ty Cobb better than anybody, really, I think. And Ty Cobb gets a negative rap these days. Ty Cobb was a very strong personality, to put it mildly. But in relation to that, that's one thing. What I see with Grantland Rice is his perception on how baseball changed. By the 1920s, he has an essay in here where he's talking to Grantland Rice, Grantland Rice is talking to Ty Cobb, and Ty Cobb is talking about the changes in baseball. This takes place in the 1920s, I believe. The changes in baseball from the time it began. Some of these guys began their baseball career in the late 1800s, and it started out as power, skill, speed. Getting a base hit was a major event in baseball. It was transformed into a slugger's sport, primarily because of hitters like Babe Ruth and others. And Ty Cobb talks about that to Grantland Rice. That perception is a fine nuance in history that is often overlooked. Baseball became the slugger sport, to hit home runs, which is what we see today. Today it's all about hitting home runs. You really don't see the focus on the television broadcasters talking about the skill it takes to get a base hit. And it began that way. It was a much different perception on what the sport entailed. Speed, power, dexterity, get a base hit, run the bases, scoring game. Much different than, let's focus on hitting home runs. Which is, again, that's by the 1920s, this is what they talk about together in one of the articles that's reprinted in this book. Because he knew Ty Cobb so well, we get that perception from both of them. Just amazing a nuance of history that is totally overlooked today. What baseball is today doesn't resemble what it was before 1930. Really. Today they're allowed to take certain proactive steroid-type enhancement drugs. I don't remember the names of them. And the baseball commissioners allow that, and it's complete nonsense. So they break records because they're enhancing themselves, not through skill, power, dexterity. They're doing it because of other things. That's perhaps a topic for another day. I feel strongly about that. I've lost interest in baseball, which used to be America's most popular sport. The Boys of Summer, There's a great biography about Lou Gehrig called The Boys of Summer, I think. Anyway, I digress. Marvelous. He talks about knowing Jim Thorpe, and oh my God. His autobiography is loaded, and this has pictures too. His His autobiography was called The Tumult and the Shouting, which was published in 1954, which was the year he died. And this was published in 1963. Some of his other books and his poetry books are available on the aftermarket. You can seek them out. Interesting guy. If you're interested in journalism, really good journalism, right here. This fine gentleman, a great inspiration to me as a writer. I think he was exceptional. Discover him. Find him. Dig into him. Dig into the things that he was involved in. I'm not saying you're going to agree with every perception that he had, but I think that as far as his power of perception and his writing skill combined, amazing piece of journalism. All right. Up next, very interesting book, and a book that's very personal for me. Rickenbacker, an autobiography by Eddie Rickenbacker. Eddie Rickenbacker, by the way, I have to tell you, trivia here. This is a first edition from, what was it, 60... Might have been later. This was published in 1967, yeah. This belonged to my grandparents in Chicago. I have an episode where I'm by their apartment where I would spend a lot of time in the summer in the 60s. And they didn't have a lot of books. I have a couple of others. What they did have is interesting. They had this. They had the Great Book of Horror and Supernatural Tales from 1944. And they had a copy of, I think it was the story of Vernon and Irene Castle, the dancers. I believe it was Irene Castle had published a book that they had that as well. Vernon and Irene Castle are forgotten celebrities. We're talking about people like Vernon and Irene Castle and Eddie Rickenbacker, who were superstars in their day and are now completely forgotten. This guy here, let me tell you about him. If you haven't become familiar with him or are unfamiliar with Eddie Rickenbacker, he was born in 1890. He died in 1973. He was a Medal of Honor winner in World War I. He had 26 aerial victories. He was a race car driver. He scripted the Ace Drummond comic series, and he was a Eastern Airline executive in his later years. In 1942, during World War II, he was delivering a secret message. I believe it was to General MacArthur. It's all in here. And his plane crashed and he was lost at sea. And he survived for 21 days at sea. They wrote him off as dead. And Eddie Rickenbacker lived until 1973. And what a man he was. Some of his political views for the time period, even for the time period, he didn't always express the popular view, but that's history. That's the real history, not the revisionist, watered-down history you would like to read. I think he's an incredible man, really. And I've had this book since the 60s. My grandmother gave it to me. She lived until 1980. So I was given this as a gift, I think, in the late 60s, probably about 69 or 70, because she knew I had become an avid reader and collector, and I still have it. It's a wonderful autobiography. Why has this not been made into a film? Maybe it has, and I'm unfamiliar with it. I mean, really, think about this. I remember Leonardo DiCaprio did Howard Hughes, and I thought he did a good job. He could play Eddie Rickenbacker. There's probably a handful of other actors that could do it too. I mean, seriously, Medal of Honor, World War I flying ace. What a man this guy was. Just find a copy of this book on the aftermarket and read it. And you won't be disappointed. One of the great autobiographies. All right, so those are my two vintage that I'm recommending that you seek out and become familiar with. And then we're going to talk about two contemporary. Blue Highways, A Journey into America by William Least Heat Moon. And when was this published? This was published, he's still out there, and I've read several others of his books. This is 1983. This is a later reprint. So he takes a journey by car across the United States. At the back of this is actually a map of the route he takes. And so he goes to these locations: Oregon, Virginia. He's in Pennsylvania. He's in Arizona. He's in Mississippi. He's all over. He makes the circuit, and he goes into these small towns and he records the people that he's meeting. And it's one character study after another. There are some photographs in the book. There's not many in this edition. There's just a few photographs of some of the people that he encounters, and all sorts of short essays broken up that takes him around the country. Again, we're talking about astute perceptions, the power of observation, and the ability to write clearly so that you are there with him as he travels the country. This is another in a long history of road books. Jack Kerouac, On the Road, kind of started that thing. He really didn't. There were books before then, but it's that tradition of writing a road book, and he's done others. I think he's a marvelous writer. I've read a couple of his other books, and I really like his style. It's manageable to read. Find it. If you haven't read Blue Highways, you're missing something. This is America in modern times, and these are the people he meets and sees, and you'll get to meet them too. Great character studies on this. I really enjoyed it, and that's why I have it in my library of nonfiction, because I find those personal stories, Grantland Rice and Eddie Rickenbacker's tales of his life, I find that to be compelling. And this is before the era, really, of bloated nonfiction. Bloated revisionist history, which is what we get today. That's what's out there now. And I don't care for most of it. I agree that there are some good nonfiction books out there. I'm going to show you one right now. The last one for today is Douglas Preston's The Lost Tomb. This is only a few years old. This is the paperback copy. Douglas Preston, of course, is part of the Preston and Child thriller series. I follow both Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child on their independent careers as well as their careers together. I have several episodes on this channel about them. This is the new one. This is a collection of his journalism, his magazine articles. Some of them go back quite a ways. And he covers an incredible variety of fascinating stories. The Lost Tomb and Other Real-Life Stories of Bones, Burials, and Murder. Wow. And that's accurate. That's absolutely correct. So Douglas Preston, he's such a great journalist. He's underrated. He's known for his fiction, which is great, but he's a great journalist, a great nonfiction writer. He wrote a book called The Master of Florence, which was a modern murder mystery, and he gives an update on that book in here. In addition to articles on the Oak Island mysteries, the skiers of Dead Mountain, paleontological discoveries. That's a tongue twister, is it not? Crime tales and lost tombs and you name it. And what I like about Douglas Preston is that he goes into the background of the individuals, the area that he's visiting. He is widely traveled. I think I covered one of his other collections. I'm almost positive I did years ago, a couple of years back, quite a few years back, maybe 5 years ago. Anyways, I really love Douglas Preston's nonfiction. Among modern writers of journalism, Douglas Preston can do no wrong as far as I am concerned. Again, I am biased. I love nonfiction. I'm deeply involved currently in writing private nonfiction material for a select group, and that is something that is a major part of my life that you don't get to see that. Maybe someday I'll release some of it, We'll see if I do that publicly. I really have no plans. I do have plans to release. I have a 3-year project that I'm going to release, which is going to be a collection of my Hollywood interviews and some of my related Hollywood articles. A couple were published under pen names and things of that nature. It will be illustrated with photographs I took and other Hollywood memorabilia. It will have some interesting sections on it. The afternoon I spent with David Carradine, for example. Things like that. Anyways, that's 3-4 years down the road. It's going to take me a while to put that together. That's really among the few things you'll get to see. There might be a section in there on literary matters, some literary interviews I did. We'll see. Anyway, those are those. I'm sorry about that. I went off on a tangent. All right, Douglas Preston, and we have William Least Heat Moon, Blue Highways, and we have the great Eddie Rickenbacker, an autobiography, and the fantastic and always great Grantland Rice, one of the top tier journalists you will ever read in your life is this man here, especially if you're a sports fan. Wow. I do talk a lot, don't I? Sorry about that. I see we're hitting about the 21-minute mark. Sorry about that. I do have episodes coming. I have them planned out, and we're going to have some interesting discussions here, I think. I'll have a discussion with myself and the phone camera, and hopefully you'll find those interesting. I'll get to those when I can. In the meantime, my friends, please stay well, stay happy, and feed your brains. Read a book.